Hi guys, we are on day 2 of slope-intercept form. Yesterday we learned how to write an equation in slope-intercept form given a point and a slope. Today we will be writing an equation in slope-intercept form given 2 points. This will add one extra step at the beginning of the problem, but it's something we've already learned how to do. Let's go ahead and get started. Here's our original problem. It says write an equation in slope-intercept form. Sometimes I find it helpful when I'm reading the directions to write down what the final answer should look like so that I know what I'm going for. So when I see that I need to write something in slope-intercept form, I know it's y equals mx plus b. And so that helps a little bit, and maybe that's something you want to do at the top of your homework paper, is write down what format your final answer should be in. In this problem, we are given 2 ordered pairs, 2, 1, and 5, negative 8. Anytime you are given 2 ordered pairs, regardless of what the directions say, your first instinct should be to use this slope formula to find the slope. Even if that's not what the directions say, our first step has to be, let's find the slope. If it helps, you can label the ordered pairs with x1, y1 and x2, y2, so that you know which numbers go in which places. Let's plug in our numbers. So from the top of my fraction, I'm going to do negative 8 minus 1. And for the bottom of the fraction, we'll do 5 minus 2. When the negative is with the first number, it cannot change to adding. So it does need to say negative 8 minus 1, and that's going to turn into a negative 9. And 5 minus 2 is 3. When you're finding slope, if you get a fraction that you can simplify, you must simplify it. Now, we are still going to write our answer as a fraction. So even though this simplifies to a whole number, I am going to leave it a fraction. My slope answer is going to be negative 3 over 1. Notice also I kept the negative sign attached to the top number. I did not float it in front of the fraction. These are all important things to practice that will help us be successful in the second half of this problem. So writing your slope as a fraction, and if it's negative, attaching the negative symbol to the top number. Once you've found your slope, you're going to go back to your slope formula, and we're going to use the altered slope formula for our second step. The altered slope formula just gets rid of the little 2's, and it makes it just the letter y and just the letter x. Using my altered slope formula, I'm going to take my x1 and y1 and my m, which I've just calculated, and I'm going to plug them into the altered slope formula. And the altered one will keep a letter y and a letter x at the beginning of the fraction. So it looks like this. Now again, it's important that your slope is a fraction, and that if it's a negative fraction, your negative sign is attached to the top number. From here, we're going to do what we learned yesterday, which is cross multiplying. When you're cross multiplying, it's helpful to write the y on the left-hand side and the x on the right-hand side. So if we just kind of follow the arrows, the 1 is going to go up here and be multiplied with the y minus 1. And the x minus 2 is going to go up here and be multiplied with the negative 3. Because these are both subtraction problems, we will need to distribute. When I distribute a 1, nothing changes. But when I distribute the negative 3, it'll become a negative 3x, and then negative 3 times negative 2 becomes a positive 6. So be careful of your signs. If I look back at the top of the screen where I wrote down what my final answer should look like, I notice that my letter y is all by itself, and any numbers that I have are on the right-hand side. And so as a final step on this question, I need to get rid of the negative 1. To get rid of a negative 1, I'm going to add 1 on both sides. And this will give me my final answer, which is y equals negative 3x plus 7. This is slope-intercept form. Please notice that none of the numbers in my final answer were in the original question. I had to do 2 steps of work before I could find my final answer. Step 1, find the slope. Step 2, create my equation. And I couldn't just plug numbers in, I had to do calculations. I had to manipulate an equation until it turned into slope-intercept form. Let's try one more together before you start your homework. Remember, all of these are considered to be your notes, so you should be writing these down on a lined piece of paper so that you can look at them while you're doing your homework for an example. You can also use them to study for our quiz, which is tomorrow, Wednesday. All right, so here we have a new problem, new ordered pairs. I still want an equation in slope-intercept form. So again, to help me out, I'm just going to write up here y equals mx plus b so that I know what I'm going for, what my final answer should look like. And I'm given two ordered pairs. And so again, I'm going to start by finding my slope. If it helps, you can label them so that you're putting them in the right spot in the slope formula. For this problem, for subtracting my y's, I'm going to do 2 minus 3. And then for subtracting my x's, I'm doing 1 minus a negative 3. And notice that I have a negative sign and I have the negative 3, a minus sign and a negative 3. And that double negative will change to a plus positive. Okay, so remember that whatever the original sign of the number is, it should be the opposite sign if it's at the end of the problem. All right, 2 minus 3 is negative 1. And now this is 1 plus 3, which is 4. And so my slope for this question is negative 1 over 4. Again, it's important that we attach the negative sign to the top number, that we do not float it in front of the fraction. At this point in time, I'm ready to use my altered slope formula. So I'm going to get rid of those 2's. So my new slope formula starts with a letter y and a letter x, and those will not be replaced with numbers. I will be replacing the x1 and the y1 with this ordered pair, and I will be replacing the letter m with this slope. Okay, so we're plugging those into my altered slope formula, and I get this. Notice that I've already changed it to x plus positive 3. So again, when you're using your altered slope formula, make sure that the signs have changed. In my original problem, the y number was positive. In my altered slope formula, it's a minus. My x number was negative. In my altered slope formula, it's a plus. So those signs should be the opposite once you're done plugging it in. Next, I'll be cross multiplying. And again, you can follow the arrows. So the 4 is going to slide up the arrow and it'll be multiplied with the y minus 3. And then the x plus 3 is going to slide up the arrow and it will be multiplied with the negative 1. Make sure that you're always putting your adding and subtracting problems into parentheses so that you don't forget to distribute. Distributing is another important step to these questions. And it's the next step. So now I'm going to distribute the 4 to the y minus 3. And then when I distribute the negative 1 times x is negative x, and then negative 1 times a positive 3 will become a negative 3. Lots of negative signs in this problem. Be very careful and aware of your negatives. If I'm thinking about my slope formula, my letter y is all by itself, and all of my numbers are on the other side. Right now, I have two numbers with my letter y. I have a 4 that's being multiplied, and I have a 12 that's being subtracted, and both of those will need to be moved. You should always move the number that's being added or subtracted first. So I'm going to start by adding the 12, and we're lining it up over here with my like term. And then your final step is going to be to divide by whatever number is being multiplied by the letter y, whatever number is right next to the letter y. We talked yesterday, when you're dividing, you do need to divide every term. So I will need to divide in 3 places. I need to divide my y and my x and my 9. When I divide my y, the 4's will cancel and go away, leaving me with just the letter y. When I divide my x, the 4 does need to stay on the bottom of the fraction. And so I can put a placeholder of 1 on top since I don't have any other number to put up there. And so my fraction would be negative 1 over 4. And 9 is not divisible by 4. And so it would be okay also to just leave that a fraction, 9 over 4. And this is my final answer to this question. So sometimes these problems will have crazy fraction answers, and it is what it is, and you just got to go with the flow and write it down and trust that that's your correct answer. You will get crazy fraction answers like this on your homework tonight, so don't be scared if you're getting fractions. This concludes our second day of slope-intercept form notes.